Part 4. The war ended 3 months after the command node was destroyed. Without the Queens coordinating them, the Vexral swarm fractured into smaller groups that fought without strategy or purpose. The Council forces, bolstered by human tactical doctrine, reclaimed their lost territory system by system. It was not an easy victory, but it was a victory nonetheless. The price had been steep. 40,000 humans were dead. The KSSF Gwangju, the frigate Seoul, and 7 other capital ships were destroyed. Hundreds of fighters had been lost, their pilots becoming names on memorial walls. Earth had proven itself in blood, and the galaxy would never forget it. Sergeant Wu Jin sat in a medical bay on the Baekdu, his left arm in regeneration therapy. A Vexral organism had nearly torn it off during the final ground battle on Krixval. He was lucky to be alive, though some days he wondered if lucky was the right word. A Prithian soldier entered the bay, moving hesitantly. It was the same commander who had fought alongside Wu Jin's unit during the city battle. He carried a small crystalline object that glowed with soft blue light. "I wanted to thank you," the Prithian said. His translator gave his words a formal tone. "This is a traditional gift of my people. It represents honor and sacrifice." Wu Jin took the crystal carefully. "You did not need to do this." "Yes, I did. You saved my world. You saved my people." The Prithian sat down, his reptilian features showing something that might have been distress. "But I must ask you something that has troubled me since that day. Are all Deathworlders like you, or is humanity unique?" "What do you mean?" "The way you fight, the weapons you use, the tactics that care nothing for your own safety. Is this normal for species from harsh worlds?" Wu Jin thought about Earth, about the millions of years of evolution that had shaped humanity. "I cannot speak for other Deathworlders, but I can tell you about us. Every creature on Earth had to become a killer to survive. The herbivores developed weapons to defend themselves. The predators developed better weapons to hunt. And humans? We learned to outthink, outadapt, and outkill everything else." He looked at his regenerating arm. "We are not special because we are strong. We are special because we never stop fighting, even when fighting seems hopeless. That sounds exhausting. It is, but it kept us alive." The Prithian stood to leave, then paused. "My people are grateful for what you did, but we are also frightened of you. I thought you should know that." After he left, Wu Jin sat alone with his thoughts. He understood the fear. Humans were frightening. They had brought total annihilation to the swarm, just as the mission title had promised. But what the galaxy did not understand was that humans were also frightened of themselves. In the council chambers on Concordia Prime, the integration vote was being debated. Commander Bora, now promoted to ambassador, stood before representatives of 12 species and listened to their concerns. The Veltis representative spoke first. "Humanity has proven militarily valuable. This is undeniable. But we must address the matter of their combat doctrine. 3 of our species have filed formal complaints about the psychological trauma inflicted on their soldiers who witnessed human operations. Your soldiers were traumatized by watching us win." Bora replied evenly. "They were traumatized by watching you use weapons we banned centuries ago. Chemical agents, nuclear devices, and atmosphere. Tactics that show no regard for proportional response. We used the weapons necessary to stop an enemy that was destroying you. Would you have preferred we fought politely while your worlds burned?" A Crithian representative, a being that looked like a floating collection of geometric shapes, interjected. "The issue is not effectiveness. It is control. How can we trust a species that fights with such brutality? What happens when human interests conflict with council interests?" Bora had prepared for this argument. She pulled up statistical analysis on the holographic display. Human casualties per Vexral killed, 1 to 47. Council casualties per Vexral killed before human intervention, 1 to 3. Human territory defended versus resources expended, 92% efficiency. Council efficiency before human intervention, 38%. She let the numbers speak for themselves. "You can judge us by our methods, or you can judge us by our results. But understand that you cannot have our results with your methods. We are what we are because our world made us this way. If you want the protection of Deathworlders, you must accept what Deathworlders do." "And if we cannot accept it?" the Veltis asked. "Then do not call us when the next threat arrives. We will defend Earth and our allies. The rest of you can fend for yourselves." The chamber fell silent. Ambassador Thelrian, who had initiated the first contact with humanity, finally spoke. "I propose we vote on integration with conditions. Humanity gains full council membership, but with restrictions on weapon deployment in certain zones and mandatory review of combat operations. Acceptable, Bora said, but we retain the right to refuse missions that would compromise our effectiveness. We will not fight with one hand tied behind our backs. The vote took 3 hours. In the end, humanity was accepted into the Galactic Council by a margin of 7 species to 5. It was not a resounding endorsement, but it was enough. Earth had secured its place in galactic politics. While the political maneuvering continued, Dr. Minseo worked alone in her research lab, analyzing the final transmissions from the Swarm Queens. The fragments were incomplete, damaged by the antimatter explosion, but she was able to reconstruct parts of their message. What she found made her blood run cold. She requested an immediate meeting with Fleet Admiral Tae-sung. When she arrived at his office, she found him staring out at the stars, his expression thoughtful. "You found something?" he said without turning around. The Vexral were running from something. I was able to translate more of their communications. Minseo pulled up the data. They called it the consuming silence. An intelligence from beyond the galactic rim that destroys everything it encounters. Not for resources, not for territory, but simply because it is what it does. How long ago did they encounter it? Based on their expansion patterns, approximately 70 years ago. They have been fleeing ever since, consuming worlds in their path to fuel their escape. Tae-sung turned to face her. And now we have destroyed their command structure. They cannot coordinate their flight anymore. Yes, which means either the swarm dies out completely or... Minseo hesitated. Or the consuming silence has a clear path to council space. How long until this threat reaches us? Unknown. The Vexral data is incomplete. It could be decades. It could be years. Tae-sung walked to his desk and accessed the classified files. This information stays between us and a select group of commanders. The council is already nervous about humanity. If they learn there is something worse coming, something that made the swarm flee for 70 years, they will panic. Should we not prepare them? We will prepare, but carefully. The council needs time to accept humanity before we tell them. They invited Deathworlders to join just in time for an extinction-level threat. He looked at Minseo seriously. How certain are you about this? 90%. The Swarm Queens were desperate in their final message. They were trying to warn us, then we make preparations quietly. Increase military production, expand training programs, and improve our deep space monitoring. If something is coming, Earth will be ready, and maybe, just maybe, we can get the council ready too. Minseo left the office with a heavy heart. She had helped stop the Vexral swarm, but in doing so, she had learned they were running from something far worse. The galaxy thought the war was over. She knew it had barely begun. Captain Dae-hyun, now promoted to admiral for his role in destroying the command node, stood on the bridge of the newly repaired Baekdu. They were heading back to Earth for the first time in 8 months. His crew deserved rest, and he deserved time to mourn the people they had lost. He thought about Lieutenant Hee-jin, who had sacrificed herself to give them those final seconds they needed. Her name would be engraved on the memorial wall at the academy. Future generations would learn about her courage. But would they understand the cost? The nightmares that came after? The weight of sending people to die for a mission? His executive officer approached. Admiral, we will reach Earth orbit in 2 hours. There will be a ceremony for the returning fleet. Prepare the casualty reports for the families, Dae-hyun said quietly.
They deserve to know how their loved ones died. Yes, sir.
For what it is worth, the mission was a success. The swarm is defeated. Dae-hyun nodded, but he could not shake the feeling that they had not won a war, but merely survived the first battle of a much longer conflict. Dr. Minseo's warning about the consuming silence had reached him through classified channels. He knew what was potentially coming. The galaxy had asked Earth for help, and Earth had brought total annihilation to the swarm. But what happened when annihilation itself came knocking? What did Deathworlders do when they faced something that made even them afraid? He supposed they would find out eventually. Until then, they would train, prepare, and hope that humanity's brutal effectiveness would be enough one more time. The Baekdu entered Earth's orbit, and Dae-hyun looked down at the blue world that had forged his species into weapons. It was beautiful and deadly, just like humanity itself. Part 5. 6 months had passed since the end of the Vexral War, and the galaxy was learning to live with humanity. It was not an easy adjustment for either side. Admiral Dae-hyun stood on the observation deck of the new Joint Defense Station, a massive structure orbiting the neutral world of Concordia Prime. Below him, ships from 15 different species conducted joint training exercises. The human vessels were easy to spot. They moved more aggressively, accelerated harder, and their weapons drills used live ammunition instead of simulations. The Krithian commander filed another complaint. His aide reported something about human pilots ignoring safety protocols during the exercise. What did they do this time? They performed a high-speed intercept maneuver that brought them within 50 meters of a Krithian destroyer. The Krithian captain says it was unnecessarily dangerous. Dae-hyun sighed. Tell the humans to maintain a 100-meter minimum distance during joint exercises, and remind them that giving our allies heart attacks does not build trust. It was a constant balance. The Council wanted humanity's military effectiveness, but they also wanted humanity to be less human. Dae-hyun understood their discomfort. 6 months ago, the Council had been losing a war. Now they had Deathworlders patrolling their space, and every day brought reminders of how different humanity was. On Mars, the first Joint Military Academy had opened its doors. Commander Bora, now serving as Earth's primary ambassador to the Council, watched as cadets from 9 species attended their first combat training session. The human instructors had been carefully selected for their ability to teach without terrifying their students, though some terror was probably inevitable. A Prithian cadet approached her after the session. Ambassador, I have a question about today's lesson. Go ahead. The instructor said we must learn to think like predators. But my species are herbivores. We do not have predatory instincts. Bora considered how to explain this. Every species has survival instincts. Predators hunt, but prey animals defend. Both require violence when necessary. What we are teaching you is controlled aggression. How to turn fear into action, hesitation into decisiveness. But humans seem to enjoy combat. Our instructor smiled when demonstrating hand-to-hand techniques. Some humans do enjoy it, Bora admitted, but most of us simply accept it as part of survival. Your people were nearly destroyed by the Vexral. Learning to fight like humans might save your species next time. The cadet nodded slowly. Will we become like you? No. You will become the version of yourselves that can survive in a dangerous galaxy. That is all we can teach you. Bora watched the cadet leave and wondered if she had said the right thing. The academy was controversial. 3 council species had refused to send cadets, claiming it would corrupt their youth with Deathworlder values. But 6 species had embraced the opportunity, understanding that the universe did not care about peaceful intentions. In a small colony on the edge of human space, Sergeant Wu Jin tried to adjust to civilian life. His unit had been disbanded after the war, the soldiers given the choice to continue service or retire. Wu Jin had chosen retirement, though he was not sure why. He worked as a security consultant now, training corporate guards and colonial militia. It was boring compared to fighting the swarm, but at least no one died during training exercises. A Veltus merchant had hired him to assess security for a trading station. The alien floated in its tank of blue liquid, its crystalline structure pulsing with what might have been anxiety. Your current security is adequate for normal threats, Wu Jin reported. But if you want protection against serious attacks, you need better weapons and trained personnel. We prefer not to use violence, the Veltus said. Our species has evolved beyond such primitive responses. Wu Jin bit back his initial response. Violence is not primitive. It is a tool. You use it when words fail and survival requires action. The Vexral proved that civilized species can still be destroyed by uncivilized threats. But humans seem to resort to violence so quickly, because we understand that hesitation kills. On Earth, the predator that hesitates goes hungry. The prey that hesitates gets eaten. We learned to act decisively because our world gave us no choice. Wu Jin pulled up security footage from the war. These are Prithian soldiers before human training and after. Notice the difference? The trained soldiers survived encounters that killed the untrained ones. Not because they were more violent, but because they were more effective. The Veltus studied the footage in silence. I will implement your recommendations, but I still do not understand how your species lives with such constant readiness for violence. We do not think about it. It is just part of being human. After the meeting, Wu Jin sat alone and thought about that statement. Was it true? Did humans really not think about the violence they were capable of? Or had they just learned to compartmentalize it so well that it seemed natural? He did not have answers. He just knew that when he closed his eyes at night, he still saw the vexural organisms he had killed. He still heard the screams of soldiers dying. The war was over, but it lived on in his mind. Dr. Minseo had not stopped working since the war ended. Her research lab on the Docto was now dedicated entirely to understanding the threat the Swarm Queens had warned about. She called it Project Horizon, and it was classified at the highest levels. "We detected another anomaly," her assistant reported. "Deep space sensors picked up quantum fluctuations near the galactic rim. Same signature as the previous 6 incidents." Minseo studied the data. Over the past 6 months, they had detected 7 unexplained events in deep space. Star systems going dark without warning, energy readings that did not match any known technology. And always the readings came from the same general direction, beyond the galactic rim where the Vexrel had originated. "How far away?" "Approximately 15,000 light-years, but the pattern suggests movement toward Council space." "How fast?" "Unknown. The data is incomplete, but if the pattern continues, we could see direct contact within 10 years. Minseo sent her findings to Fleet Admiral Tae-sung through encrypted channels. His response came back within an hour. "Continue monitoring, increase sensor network coverage, and prepare contingency plans for potential first contact scenarios." She wondered how the Council would react when they learned the truth. They had barely accepted humanity after seeing them defeat the swarm. How would they respond to news of an even greater threat? Fleet Admiral Tae-sung stood in the war room deep beneath the United Earth Defense Command headquarters. Around him, holographic displays showed the current state of human military readiness, production facilities running at full capacity, new ship designs incorporating lessons from the HFY War, training programs that had tripled in size. "The Council has noticed our military expansion," one of his aides said. "They are asking questions. Tell them we are preparing for future threats. It is not a lie. Should we inform them about the consuming silence?" Tae-sung considered the question carefully. "Not yet. We have no concrete evidence. Only fragments from dying swarm queens and sensor anomalies that could be anything. If we tell the Council now, they will panic and lose faith in us. We need them to trust humanity first. And if the threat arrives before they trust us, then we fight anyway. That is what Deathworlders do." The meeting continued for hours, planning for scenarios that might never occur. But Tae-sung had learned long ago that preparation was the difference between survival and extinction. Earth had survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and natural disasters. They would survive whatever came next, even if it meant fighting alone. On Concordia Prime, Ambassador Bora attended a council session where human integration was being reviewed. The Veltis representative presented a report on human cultural influence. "Human entertainment has become popular among young people of several species," the representative said with disapproval. "Action films, combat sports, survival programs. They glorify violence and aggression. They depict reality," Bora countered. "The universe is violent. Ignoring that fact does not make it less true. But such content is corrupting peaceful cultures, or it is preparing them for the next crisis. When the Vexrel came, your peaceful cultures were helpless. Human culture, as you call it, is survival culture. It teaches that threats exist and must be confronted." The debate continued, but Bora knew she had already won the argument. Human culture was spreading because it resonated with something deep in every species. The understanding that survival requires strength. The Council could complain all they wanted, but their youth were learning from humanity because humanity had proven that its methods worked. That evening, Bora met with Admiral Dae-hyun at a quiet restaurant on the station. They ate in silence for a while, both exhausted from their respective battles with Council bureaucracy. "Do you think we made the right choice?" Bora asked finally. "Joining the Council? We did not have much choice. The galaxy found us. We could hide or engage. Hiding seemed cowardly, but we have changed them. Their culture, their military, their entire worldview. Is that what we wanted?" Dae-hyun set down his utensils. "We wanted survival. Everything else is just details. The Council was dying before we arrived. Now they have a chance. If that means they become more like us, maybe that is what they need." Part 3. Dr. Min Seo had been studying the Vexrel for 3 weeks, and something was wrong. The xenobiologist sat in her lab aboard the research vessel Dokdo, surrounded by holographic displays of swarm movement patterns. Every military mind in the galaxy assumed the Vexral were simply consuming everything in their path. But Minseo saw something different. "They are searching for something," she said to her assistant. "How can you tell?" Minseo pulled up a star map showing the swarm's expansion. "Look at the pattern. They are not taking the most populated systems first. They are not even taking the richest resource planets. They are moving in a specific direction, and when they find nothing, they spread out in a search pattern before continuing." "What are they searching for?" "I do not know yet, but I think if we find their command center, we will get answers." She sent her analysis to Fleet Admiral Tae Sung. His response came back within an hour, along with orders to report to the Baekdu immediately. When Minseo arrived, she found herself in a strategy meeting with the senior commanders of the human fleet. Admiral Tae Sung stood at the head of the table, his aged face showing the weight of command. Captain Dae-hyun was there along with Commander Bo-ra via holographic link, and several other officers. "Dr. Minseo has found something," Tae Sung said. "Show them." Minseo activated her presentation. "I traced the Vexral quantum communications back to their source. They have a command node, a central intelligence directing the swarm. It is located here." She highlighted a system deep in Vexral-held territory, 3 jumps past the current front lines. "If we can destroy it, the swarm will lose coordination." "That is suicide," one of the fleet captains said. "We would have to fight through 3 systems of enemy forces. We would be surrounded, cut off with no supply lines." "Yes," Tae-sung agreed, "which is why no sane military force would attempt it. The Council certainly would not risk it," he smiled. "But we are not the Council." "Captain Dae-hyun, how many ships would you need?" Dae-hyun studied the tactical display. "For a direct assault? 50 capital ships minimum, and we would lose most of them. But if we use stealth tactics," and he zoomed in on the route. "A small strike force. Fast ships, minimal sensor signatures. We slip through instead of fighting through." "The Council does not have stealth technology that advanced," Bo-ra said from her hologram. "Their idea of stealth is turning off their running lights." "Then it is good we do," Dae-hyun replied. "Humanity has been hiding from each other for thousands of years." "We know stealth," Tae-sung nodded. "Make it happen. I want a plan within 12 hours. Lieutenant Hee-jin stood in the briefing room with 30 other pilots, all of them handpicked for the mission. The ships were different from their standard fighters. These were stealth interceptors, coated in materials that absorbed sensor waves and equipped with engines that left minimal thermal signatures. "This is a one-way trip," the briefing officer said bluntly. "We will be operating beyond rescue range. If you are hit, you are on your own. If you are captured, the Vexral do not take prisoners. They will consume you." No one left the room. "Our objective is to escort the Baekdu to the command node and provide cover during the assault. We will face overwhelming numbers. Survival depends on not being seen until we want to be seen." "Any questions?" Hee-jin raised her hand. "What are the odds we make it back?" "Honestly, 30%. Good enough." Hee-jin grinned. "I have survived worse odds in training." The strike force consisted of the Baekdu, 2 escort frigates, and 40 stealth fighters. They jumped into Vexral territory at a random point, away from major swarm concentrations, and began their approach. Officer Ji-woo was responsible for electronic warfare aboard the Baekdu. His job was to keep them hidden, and he was very good at it. He had hacked Council systems for fun before joining the military. The Vexral quantum communications were more complex, but the principle was the same. "I am seeding false signals across the network," Ji-woo reported. "They will think we are swarm ships that got separated from the main group." "How long will that work?" Dae-hyun asked. "Until they get close enough to see we are not crystalline bioships, so we stay far away from everything." They moved through the first system like ghosts. Vexral patrols passed within kilometers, but the human ships barely registered on sensors. When they did appear as faint contacts, Ji-woo's false signals made the swarm think they were friendlies. The second system was harder. There was more swarm presence, and they had to navigate through an asteroid field to avoid a major concentration. Hee-jin led her squadron through the rocks, using their small size and human reflexes to thread between asteroids at speeds that would have been suicide for Council pilots. "Contact," one of the pilots reported. 3 Vexral scouts closing on our position. "Do not engage unless necessary," Dae-hyun ordered. "Maintain stealth protocols." The scouts swept past them, their organic sensors probing the asteroids. The human ships powered down to minimal levels, drifting like debris. Hyojin held her breath. watching the enemy ships pass less than 100 meters from her canopy. She could see their crystalline structures pulsing with bioluminescence. Then they were gone, moving on to search elsewhere. Clear, Jiwoo confirmed. They did not register us as threats. Continue to the third system, Daehyun ordered. We are almost there. The third system was where everything went wrong. The swarm's command node was here, and it was massive. The structure was not a ship or a station. It was a living thing the size of a moon, pulsing with energy and surrounded by thousands of bioships in defensive formations. That is the target? One of the frigate captains asked. That is the target, Dr. Minseo confirmed. The swarm queens are inside. Kill them, and the swarm loses its direction. Beginning approach, Daehyun said. All ships arm antimatter charges. One shot is all we will get. They were 5 million kilometers from the target when the swarm detected them. Maybe it was their approach vector. Maybe it was Jiwoo's false signals failing. Or maybe the Queen simply sensed something wrong. Whatever the reason, thousands of bioships suddenly changed course and headed directly for the human strike force. We are burned, Jiwoo reported. They know we are here. Then we stop being subtle, Daehyun said. All fighters engage. Clear us a path. Frigates, full speed to the target. Baekdu will deliver the payload. Heejin's squadron dropped stealth protocols and lit up their engines. They screamed toward the approaching swarm at maximum acceleration, their weapons firing before they even reached range. Missiles and plasma charges filled the space between the two forces. The Vexrel did not expect the humans to charge directly at them. They were used to council tactics, where fleets would maneuver and position before engaging. The human fighters crashed into their formation like hammers, firing at point-blank range and using their speed to avoid counterattacks. Heejin destroyed 3 bioships in the first 10 seconds, then had to dodge through the debris of a 4th that her wingmen killed. Her fighter took hits, alarm screaming as armor plating burned away, but she kept flying. That was the human way. You kept fighting until you were dead or victorious, and sometimes you fought a bit longer just to be sure. Baekdu is through. Daehyun's voice came over the comm. All fighters break off and return to the frigates. Negative, Heejin replied, breathing hard from the G-forces. We will cover your approach to the target. That is suicide. Yes, sir. But it is our suicide to choose. 20 fighters stayed behind, holding off thousands of swarm ships while the Baekdu made its approach to the command node. They fought with everything they had, and one by one their signals went dark on the tactical display. Heejin was one of the last. Her fighter was barely holding together, half the systems dead, engines sputtering. She lined up on one more target, a bioship that was pursuing the Baekdu. Sorry, Mom, she whispered, and rammed her fighter into the enemy at full speed. The explosion was brief and bright, one tiny star in the vastness of space. Aboard the Baekdu, Daehyun saw her signal disappear. He did not have time to mourn. They were at the command node, and the swarm queens were trying to communicate. Minseo's translation software picked up fragments. Not understand. Why attack? Fleeing greater threat. Must survive. They are running from something, Minseo said, shocked. The swarm is not invading. They are refugees. Daehyun looked at the tactical display. 18 fighters lost. 2,000 crew dead. The frigate Gwangju was gone, destroyed, covering their approach. And now he was being told the enemy was fleeing something worse. We came here to complete a mission, he said quietly, and we will complete it. If there is something worse out there, then the galaxy needs us even more. Launch the antimatter charges. The weapons deployed from the Baekdu's torpedo tubes accelerating toward the command node. The Swarm Queen sent one final transmission, just 2 words that Minseo's computer translated. They come. Then the antimatter detonated. Matter and antimatter annihilated each other in a release of pure energy that could be seen from 3 star systems away. The command node ceased to exist along with every swarm ship within 1,000,000 kilometers. The Baekdu survived barely, its shields burned away and hull scorched black. But they survived. Set course for home, Daehyun ordered, and someone find out what those queens were running from. Part 1. The message came through every frequency at once. Static filled the command deck of the KSSF Baekdu, then cleared into a sound no human had ever heard before. It was a voice, desperate and alien, speaking through a translator that struggled to make sense of words never meant for human ears. Captain Daehyun stood from his chair, watching the main screen flicker with symbols that hurt to look at. His crew fell silent. They had been patrolling the outer edge of human space for 6 months without incident. Now something was trying to talk to them. Can we understand it? Daehyun asked his communications officer. Working on it, sir. The computer is learning their language in real time. The sounds shifted, twisted, and then became words. Broken, strange words, but words nonetheless. Help. Dying. Swarm consumes. Need Deathworld. Daehyun felt a chill run down his spine. Deathworld. That was what the few alien probes that had studied Earth from a distance called it. A planet so hostile that everything living there had become a weapon, just to survive another day. Humans were classified as one of the most dangerous species ever discovered, which was why the Galactic Council had quarantined the entire Sol system decades ago, and now someone was asking Earth for help. 3 days later, Commander Bora sat across from Ambassador Thelrion in a neutral space station called Concordia Prime. The alien looked like a jellyfish mixed with crystal, floating in a tank of blue liquid. Its thoughts came through a translation device as smooth speech. "Thank you for coming," Thelrion said. "We are desperate. The Vexral swarm has consumed 60 of our systems. Billions are dead. Our fleets cannot stop them. When we learned of your species, we knew you were our only hope." Bora studied the holographic maps showing the swarm's advance. It was brutal and efficient. Entire planets stripped to bedrock. Why us? You have 12 species in your council. Surely your combined forces are losing. Thelrion's color shifted to a dark purple. We fight with honor, with rules, with mercy. The Vexral know none of these things. They are like the creatures of your homeworld. They only know hunger and expansion. And you think we can fight them because we come from a death world? Yes. Bora leaned back. She had reviewed the Council's military reports. Their idea of warfare was almost polite. They avoided civilian casualties at all costs. They never used chemical weapons, never deployed nuclear devices in atmosphere, never accepted a casualty rate above 5%. Their doctrine was built on 10,000 years of civilized conflict between rational species who all valued life. Earth's doctrine was built on 10,000 years of survival against a planet that wanted everything dead. If you ask for our help, Bora said slowly, you need to understand what you are getting. Humans do not fight like you do. We fight to win. We fight dirty. We use every advantage, every weapon, every tactic that works. We will do things that will horrify your people. Thelrion's color shifted again, this time to something that might have been fear. Will you commit atrocities? No, but we will commit war. Totalvar, the kind your species has not seen in millennia. Bora pulled up footage from Earth's history. Battles, sieges, desperate last stands. We grew up on a planet where the air could kill you, the water could kill you, the plants and animals could kill you. We made it to the top of the food chain by being more vicious than anything else. If you want that turned against the swarm, we can do it. But do not ask us to do it your way. The alien was quiet for a long moment. How soon can you mobilize? 2 weeks. On Earth, Fleet Admiral Tae Sung stood before the United Defense Command. Representatives from every nation filled the massive chamber. The holographic display showed the Galactic Council's territory and the swarm consuming it like a cancer. They have offered us full council membership, Tae Sung said. Access to their technology, their trade networks, their knowledge. In exchange, they want our military support against this threat. And if we refuse, the Chinese representative asked, the swarm will eventually reach us. Better to fight them there than here. Tae Sung pulled up casualty projections. The Council's fleets are sophisticated but soft. They have not fought a real war in generations. The Vexral are overwhelming them through sheer brutality. This is an enemy we are uniquely qualified to face. The debate lasted for hours, but the conclusion was inevitable. Humanity would fight, not out of altruism, but because isolation was no longer safe. The galaxy had found Earth, and Earth needed to secure its place in it. Lieutenant Hyojin checked her fighter systems for the 3rd time. Around her, the hangar buzzed with activity as pilots prepared for deployment. She was young, only 26, but she had logged more flight hours than most council pilots would see in a lifetime. Earth's constant conflicts had kept her busy. Nervous? Her wingman asked. Excited, Hyojin admitted. We have been training our whole lives for threats on Earth. Now we get to see what is out there. Monsters, according to the briefing. Good. I was getting bored fighting simulations. In the troop transport bay, Sergeant Wu Jin addressed his unit. 30 soldiers in full combat gear, each carrying enough weaponry to take on a small army. They wore expressions ranging from grim determination to barely contained aggression. "Listen up," Wu Jin said. "The aliens think we are scary. They have seen our history and they think we are monsters. Let us not disappoint them." A few soldiers chuckled. "The enemy is a hive mind. They coordinate perfectly. They do not feel fear and they do not retreat. But they have never fought humans before. They have never faced something that evolved to hunt persistent predators across plains, to ambush apex predators in jungles, to survive ice ages and plagues in each other." He held up his combat knife, standard issue. The aliens were confused why we still carry blades. "They have energy weapons," they said. "Why carry primitive tools?" Wu Jin smiled. "Because when everything else fails, a sharp piece of metal still kills. That is the human way. Adaptability, ruthlessness, survival." The unit roared their approval. Captain Dae Hyun watched his fleet assemble through the Baekdu's main viewport. 40 warships from Korea, Japan, and the Pacific Coalition. Behind them, hundreds more from other nations. The largest military fleet humanity had ever sent into space, and according to the aliens, it was smaller than a single Council defense force. But numbers were not everything. The Council had large fleets because they could afford losses in their civilized warfare. Human ships were built different. Redundant systems, heavy armor, weapons that violated 3 different galactic treaties Earth had never signed. Every vessel was designed to keep fighting even when crippled, to take damage that would destroy a Council ship and keep shooting back. "All ships report ready," his executive officer announced. "Set course for the Krixval system," Daehyun ordered. "Let us show the galaxy what Deathworlders can do." The fleet jumped to faster than light travel, leaving Earth behind. In the Galactic Council chambers, Ambassador Thelrion watched the departure on long-range sensors. Hope warred with dread in its mind. They had asked for aid from a Deathworld species. They were about to learn exactly what that meant. Part 2, the Krixval system was dying. Captain Daehyun watched the tactical display as his fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel. What should have been a thriving star system with 3 inhabited planets was now a war zone. The Vexoral swarm filled the space between worlds like a plague of locusts. "How many?" Daehyun asked. "Sensors are counting over 10,000 individual bioships," his tactical officer reported. "Mass ranges from fighter size to 3 kilometers long. They are converging on the second planet." On the display, the Council's defense fleet was in full retreat. Their elegant ships, all smooth curves and shimmering shields, were being torn apart by crystalline monsters that looked more grown than built. The Vexoral ships moved wrong, twitching through space like insects, closing distance faster than the Council vessels could maintain formation. "They fight like prey animals," Daehyun observed, "always backing away, trying to maintain range." "Tactical. How long until the swarm reaches the planet?" 4 hours at current speed. "Then we have 4 hours to teach them how predators fight. All ships attack Formation Delta. Target the largest concentrations. Do not worry about taking damage. Worry about dealing it." The human fleet surged forward, and the aliens monitoring the battle feeds could not believe what they were seeing. Instead of the careful positioning and shield management they expected, the human ships accelerated directly into the swarm. They moved like sharks cutting through a school of fish. The Baekdu fired first. Missiles streaked across the void, but they were not the clean energy weapons the Council used. These were fusion warheads, banned by Galactic Convention for 300 years. The first salvo hit a cluster of Vexoral ships, and the explosions were miniature suns. 30 bioships vaporized instantly. "Reload and fire at will," Daehyun ordered calmly. "Show them what humans learned from splitting the atom." Around the Baekdu, the rest of the fleet opened fire. Railguns hurled metal slugs at relativistic speeds, punching through Vexoral armor like paper. Laser arrays designed to cut through asteroids sliced bioships in half. Chemical explosive shells, considered barbaric by Council standards, detonated inside enemy hulls and turned them into floating debris. The swarm adapted quickly, as hive minds do. They began swarming individual human ships, trying to overwhelm them with numbers. This was their mistake. A Vexoral cluster surrounded the frigate Sol, cutting off its escape. The Council observers expected the ship to be destroyed. Instead, Sol did something insane. It detonated its own reactor in a controlled explosion, creating an electromagnetic pulse that fried every Vexoral ship within 500 kilometers. The crew evacuated seconds before in escape pods that were already being picked up by nearby human vessels. Confirm Seoul's crew is safe, Daehyun said. And note their sacrifice in the logs. They took out 200 enemy ships. This was the human way. When victory required sacrifice, humans calculated the exchange rate and acted. One ship for 200 was excellent mathematics. Lieutenant Hye-jin was in the middle of the chaos, her fighter weaving through the battle at speeds that would have killed a council pilot. Human bodies could withstand greater G-forces, and she pushed her machine to its limits. Her wingman stayed close, the two of them moving like dancers through the swarm of enemies. Target-rich environment, her wingman said over the comm, his voice strained from the acceleration. Too rich. Pick the big ones. Yi-jin locked onto a Vexral ship the size of a destroyer. It was launching smaller organisms into space, living missiles that sought out human vessels. She armed her plasma torpedoes and dove straight at it, ignoring the defensive fire that burned past her canopy. At the last second, she released her payload and pulled up hard enough to black out for a moment. When her vision cleared, the Vexral ship was breaking apart, its internal structure melting from the plasma fire. Splash 1, she reported. Moving to next target. The battle raged for 2 hours before the swarm began to withdraw. They had never faced an enemy that fought with such calculated violence. The Council fleets would retreat when losses reached 5%. The human fleet was at 18% casualties and still attacking. As the Vexral pulled back to regroup, Captain Daehyun received a transmission from the Council fleet commander. Human commander, your tactics are effective, but you have lost nearly 20 ships. Do you not value the lives of your crews? Daehyun looked at the casualty reports, 3,000 dead, but the swarm had lost over 5,000 bioships. The planet below was saved, and the Vexral advance had stopped for the first time in months. We value their lives enough to ensure their deaths have meaning, Daehyun replied. They died protecting millions on that planet. That is the greatest honor a soldier can achieve. The Council commander did not respond. Perhaps there were no words in his language for what he had witnessed. On the surface of Krixval's second planet, Sergeant Wu Jin and his unit deployed from drop pods that hit the ground like meteors. The city around them was under siege. Vexral ground organisms, each the size of a tank and covered in crystalline armor, were pushing through the streets. The local defense forces, a species called the Prythian who looked like tall reptiles, were losing ground with every passing minute. Form up, Wu Jin ordered. His soldiers moved with practiced efficiency, establishing a perimeter around their landing zone. We have authorization for all weapons. No restrictions. Command wants this city held. The Prythian commander approached them cautiously. He carried an energy rifle that looked elegant but impractical. You are the humans? The ones from the Death World. That is correct. Pull your forces back 200 meters. We are about to make it very hot here. But our civilians are dead if we do not stop the swarm here. Trust us or do not, but get your people clear. The Prythian hesitated, then gave the order. His forces retreated, leaving the humans alone in the street as the Vexral organisms approached. There were dozens of them, moving with the coordination of a hive mind, their crystalline bodies reflecting the burning buildings around them. Wu Jin waited until they were 50 meters away. Light them up. The thermobaric missiles hit first. They were fuel-air explosives, weapons that created massive pressure waves and heat. The first organisms simply ceased to exist, vaporized in fireballs that reached 2,000 degrees. The ones behind them staggered, their coordination disrupted. Then came the chemical weapons. Acid dispersal charges that ate through crystalline armor like water through sugar. The Vexral organisms began to dissolve, their structures breaking down at the molecular level. The survivors tried to retreat, but Wu Jin's unit advanced, firing armor-piercing rounds at point-blank range. One organism survived the onslaught and charged directly at Wu Jin. He sidestepped its strike, drew his combat knife and drove it into a gap in its armor. The blade found something vital and the creature collapsed. Clear, Wu Jin reported, moving to the next street. Behind him, the Prythian soldiers emerged from cover. They stared at the devastation in stunned silence. The Vexral organisms that had been destroying their city for days were now just smoking remains. The humans had annihilated them in under 2 minutes. What kind of weapons are those? The Prythian commander asked. The kind that work, Wu Jin replied. You have more swarm incoming? Yes, 3 more groups approaching from the east. Good. We are just getting started. Over the next 6 hours, Wu Jin's unit fought through the city, clearing street by street. They used tactics that made the Prithian observers uncomfortable. Booby traps made from civilian explosives, ambushes from collapsed buildings. At one point, they collapsed an entire skyscraper onto a swarm formation, crushing 24 organisms under tons of debris. By the time reinforcements arrived, the city was secure. Wu Jin's unit had suffered 12 casualties, 7 dead and 5 wounded. They had killed over 300 vexral organisms. The Prithian commander approached Wu Jin as he was checking his soldiers. I need to know something. Do humans enjoy this? The killing? Wu Jin considered the question honestly. Some of us do. Most of us just accept it as necessary. We come from a world where everything was trying to kill us every day. We learned to be better at killing than anything else. Does that disturb you? Yes. Good, it should. Wu Jin reloaded his rifle. But your people are alive because we are disturbing. Remember that. In orbit, Captain Daehyun received reports from the surface operations. Commander Bora was also receiving reports along with complaints from 3 different council species about human military conduct. She read them all and then transmitted a single message back to the council chambers. We were asked to stop the swarm. The swarm is stopped. If you have objections to our methods, you are welcome to take over the mission. There were no takers. The Vexral had not stopped advancing in 60 systems. Now, for the first time, they had been pushed back. The human fleet had shown the galaxy what Deathworld warfare looked like, and this was only the beginning.